Hello to the wise people. This video is going to be touching on some potentially controversial topics, as I'm prone to do lately, so for all the new people,
welcome.
Thank you, buddy. This is coming fresh off the heels of the last video that I put out, the longest one that I've actually ever done with regards to the Twitter spat with V and JustSomeGuy, titled Just Some Guy is One Colossal Moron, where I delivered what I'm sure would be considered a hate crime in some states, and no, we don't do controversy here, people, not at all. But anyway, let me just say thank you to everyone involved here. Thank you to all the new people who are liking this funny bollocks. Thank you to V for engaging with this kid after he retweeted you. Thank you to the person on that thread who told us Just Some Guy did a V response to V. And a thank you to Just Some Guy for spending God knows how many hours engaging in this desperate attempt of yours to salvage some semblance of credibility as you repeatedly keep shooting yourself in the foot. Well done indeed. And if you're wondering why I am still talking about this, it's very simple. I am farming the bukkake of likes, and yes, I will admit that. The people respond very well to the last video, so I'm going to make another one. The people have spoken, and I, being the good capitalist that I am, will adhere to the wishes of my audience. It may be like beating a dead horse, but I still have glue to make. So, not to mention just some guy, your stupidity has value. Just to keep it topical. And by the way, the people in the comments section told me that he's in his 40s? Please tell me that is not true. Dear God, that's terrifying. In his 40s and he talks like this. Man, that screams midlife crisis mode. I kept calling him kid, and I will continue to do so because he has the political acumen of someone still in high school. Or in Congress. Actually, as I was recording the audio for that video, I was reacting to it in real time in my booth. It was probably the, third time I was watching it? At that point, yes, I know I have Herculean-like endurance for stupidity. I'm South African, trust me, we're born with it. And the more I watched it, the dumber it got, and the more I had to say on it. But at this point, the video was upward of 40 minutes or so? So I thought, I should probably make a second one because this is kind of taking the mickey. Here's the thing for me. I am no psychoanalyst, but I do find his character fascinating, as well as kind of insane. And I'll say character because that's as far as it goes for me. That's a zone of relegation. If you looked at V's initial tweet, the left believes in equality, the right believes in quality. Anyone who is not a frothing at the mouth, shit-stirring lunatic would look at that and go, oh, this is pretty clever, it's snappy, a nice wordplay. Because it is. JSG's take to extrapolate from that, but Monazi, would make anyone rational think he's crazy. Because he is. Right? No one else but him is thinking this. His tweet gets no likes, V's replies are mauling the argument. You would think, if you had any semblance of sense, this is not a winnable move. Which is hilarious because he claims he couldn't respond on Twitter because of the character limit. And I said that's bollocks, he has a bigger YouTube following, and while he chastises V for using the demotic volume agreement argument, he goes on to YouTube, in my opinion, to enact out V's argument, only to get stomped by even his own audience. Now he has no majority agreeing with him, and he's hemorrhaging support and spurring mockery. Why were you doing this? Who the hell knows? His initial premise is so flawed that I'm wondering what in God's name gave his ego the impression that he would somehow best V in a political argument. It's pretty funny to watch. Like anyone who's looking at this unfold in real time knows the root of his argument is so rotten it can only blow up in his face. And yet, he proceeds. His initial premise is an extracted, exaggerated caricature, and V and everyone else can see this. So V simply flips in the other direction of the political winds and exaggerates back at him, mocking him, and yet he can't seem to understand that. Now, the reason I'll relegate him to the character status is not meant to be mean or degrading. That's me being generous, because I refuse to believe anyone can be that stupid. He goes into this thing already that walking cliché leftist caricature. Again, it can only get worse. He then proceeds to address nothing that V says, acts like a witless teenager who just insults everyone in the most conceited, grating manner over and over again. You can hear me get increasingly more annoyed because I'm thinking, can you please just gnaw at the damn argument and not just bark like a drunken dog? I'm not asking for much here. Please make a coherent argument so that it doesn't look like I'm just agreeing with everything V is saying. But he doesn't. He just gets increasingly hostile as the video goes on, and I'm just stuck here, belittling him, because there's nothing for me to criticize except this caricature that he is presenting. That's a bit that's driving me insane as a neutral observer. Well, as neutral as I can possibly be. The longer the drama went on, he just kept adding layer and layer and layer of hypocrisy and or stupidity. I mean, he calls himself a gentleman, yet chastises V for being Slavic, quite a few times in fact, his grasp of the English language. Meanwhile, he can't understand that quality and meritocracy is the same thing, let alone what V was trying to say. He's so arrogant about what he thinks V meant, but on more than one occasion, he's asking for clarification. When V brought up Marxism under the Iron Curtain, JSG claims that's a straw man. He later on then brings up race as a point to strengthen his own argument in a way that makes absolutely no sense at all, but then claims V shouldn't step to him on the grounds of being black in America means he understands the struggle of racial oppression, when V never even mentioned race. Or my favorite one, and this one is just funny as hell. V claims the only way these people, I assume lefties, can see the world is through the Second World War and Marvel movies. After the fascismus insinuation on the retweet, in his second video response, when V brings up Twitter, JSG tries to compare Elon Musk to Iron Man's Tony Stark. I have no words. What the hell are you doing, kid? This is why I joked about him having a fetish for being beaten by Europeans, because outside of having a brittle ego or enjoying masochism, I see no reason why anyone would do this. He face-planted so hard into the classic intellectual trap of being so smug in his perception of his own intelligence that he thinks he knows what he's talking about outside of his sphere of expertise. He was already a walking cliche at the start going in, and by the end of it, he's a drowning meme of idiocy. After watching this, you have to understand, anyone with sense, right, is very likely going to draw one of two most logical conclusions here. Either you are clout farming for clicks because you have no sense of shame, at least when V does it, it's funny and he's correct, or you are so indoctrinated that you've gone full moron. There's not much room for any other interpretation here. And the thing is, JSG, I will bet you, if you admitted you did this for the former, people would probably just let it go. But from what I've read in the comment section, a past interaction with Nick Rakita left you scarred and you've yet to recover. You could even see by the third time V was trying to break it down, he didn't know how else to address any of this. Like, the people in the comment section were saying, oh, you two are talking past each other. No, they're not. Anyone with a functioning brain knows what V was trying to say. If they did a live stream together, V would annihilate him. And I'm not saying this as a fan of his, I'm looking at who is the most well-versed here and making the better argument. So far, only one man has actually made any argument at all, and that is our Romanian cloud chaser. Now, I want to point out something about his worldview that I find very bizarre, and buckle up people because this could get extremely contentious, so bear with me. He doesn't seem to understand that humans do not, cannot, and will never treat each other equally because we are human. We have free will, we have attachments, emotions, we are not machines for heaven's sakes. Even in his moral dilemma of being faced with a choice of saving the girl or your mother, he says the normal, rational, ethical position is to save the girl. How is this the normal, rational, ethical position? By what accounts is that rational? Because as best as I can tell, this implies a completely emotionless choice based on the potential of youth, and any worth your own mother has is deemed forfeit. Like, this sounds like a gambling calculation done by a machine, not a human being. As a matter of fact, the truly equal choice, and this may sound kind of grim, is to let them both perish. That's the actual equal choice. Equality is a myth, it's unnatural. It's found nowhere in nature for good reason. No one ever built anything badass based on equality, because it's cringe and gay. When V pointed out the mechanism of having systems to improve oneself, which is normal, people strive to achieve, JSG claims this is what the left wants. I was damn near dumbstruck at his political naivety. This is not the world we live in, my dude. If you did that in a free society, you are going to have unequal outcomes because freedom and equality are antithetical. The best will rise to the top. Not only will the best rise to the top, but you are going to see the nakedly obvious differences between groups, ethnicities, and races in a multidimensional way. I said this before. Look at the world. The NBA, the NFL in America, same with track. Blacks dominate. Long distance running, Kenyan and Ethiopian descent kicks ass. Strongest humans in the world, cold climate Europeans. Some of the best farmers in the world, Dutch ancestry. Asians rock the STEM fields and Jews dominate the finance sector. And we all know these things, by the way. They're easily observable realities, consequence of natural human interaction and civilization development over the course of several centuries. Well, as natural as conquest goes, I suppose. And the left hates superiority of any kind. The entire political philosophy is based on envy. Read Lenin, for heaven's sakes. So let's tackle his wild take on acknowledging worth or whatever, and for some reason this leading to oppression, discrimination, and/or genocide. Dude, those things happen for differences, not necessarily superiority. Russian Revolution, ring a bell perhaps? How many lives have been taken in the course of human history in the name of freedom and liberation? And were the spoils of victory just? Interesting. Here's the thing. Let's just get contentious here, shall we? Superiority and inferiority. Very, very politically loaded phrases these days. Blame a certain funny mustache Austrian man. Return the Kaiser. Anyway, let's drop the race from the following scenario. Okay, we're booting safe mode anthropology over here. Let's say we take a tribal fellow from somewhere in Africa and we put him in the modern world. How do you think he would do? Would you deem him inferior? Analytically, you probably would. We're talking different worlds, language, culture, customs, morality. They'd be completely out of place. Now, let's flip it though. Let's take modern man with his dependency on electricity and machinery and amenities, and we put him next to our tribal fellow in Africa. Who is the inferior one now? The point I'm trying to make here is this. We often look at these terms, superiority and inferiority, in a quantifiable way that suits our positions, which of course it would, we're the ones making the claim. But the environment is clearly a strong factor here. Yes, genetics and intelligence obviously play a role. There's a reason why the brightest minds have forged Europe and Asia. But just because another group is lagging behind compared to ours in whatever metric you wish to use, does not mean those humans can't live fulfilling lives. Like, who are we to dictate they must play catch up to us? Sort of my one argument against imperialism here. Now don't get me wrong, there's definitely groups that have engaged in barbaric practices across human history. But even if your intervention is a moral one, it's still an intervention, only one you'd have to truly justify to as God. But even the way he looked at value, or couldn't define it rather, hence why V was asking for definition, his lack of clarification on it leaves me with the impression that his position concludes to a place of stasis, a certain static quality, as if it's forever unchanged, as if humans can't self-upgrade in a way. Again, it's not very well thought out, hence my probing here. Let's do an amusing hypothetical, and we go natural law. Humans are not equal. Let's say that we have some connected territories full of people, and a group in one region advances faster than the others, and the better ones are rising to the top, right? The natural aristocracy emerges. They all coexist within a certain proximity. Is the growing disparity going to inevitably result in war? And if so, do you think it's always going to be the more advanced group that starts it? Superiority and inferiority, more often than not, is not time-locked, and implying it is seems like the conclusion of a eugenicist. The question I want to know is, how on earth will you have a society advance if you don't acknowledge and learn from your superiors? Why must it always denigrate into genocide in your world? Even slavery doesn't go that far, if you can be nuanced about it, that is. The slaves have value as labor. If they were a net hindrance in terms of economic output on a resource consumption to production scale, they'd simply be removed. What a fantasy world he must live in, eh? Cheers for watching, and once again, I apologize for nothing.